Today, the better part will introduce you to a young man who was inspired because of his own medical condition to establish a foundation to help children with rheumatoid arthritis. It also inspired him to climb to the top of Mount Everest in March of this year, 2011, to call attention to juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and to his foundation. My name is Bill Mannion. I'm your host for this edition of The Better Part. Please stay tuned.
Welcome to The Better Part, a program that encompasses a diverse spectrum of topics important to our community, which we hope will both inform and entertain you. We invite you to sit back and enjoy the program.
With us in the studio today is Jeff Gottfurcht, who 10 years ago, at the age of 27, was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. Welcome to The Better Part, Jeff.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. We're grateful to be here.
Jeff, before you tell our viewers about your climb to the summit of Mount Everest this year, tell us how and why you became involved with JRA.
I became involved with JRA because, as you mentioned, 10 years ago I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And at the time, I didn't know that young people such as myself could have a disease such as rheumatoid arthritis. I thought it only happened in people in their older ages and so forth. And when I started going to the hospital to get treated, I began to view little kids who had the disease, and I was absolutely shocked and moved, not only that they had the disease, but I personally knew the pain, the horrific battle that I was going through, and I was just moved by these little kids who were doing the same thing that I was doing, but I'm a grown man, and these were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, upwards in age, and it just very much moved me.
Well, I know you're a father of 3 children yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that would come to my mind is in terms of the possibility of transmitting something like this to your children.
Well, for rheumatoid arthritis, there is no cure, there is no cause. They don't know exactly what. It's a mystery right now in the medical field. I will say this in regard to my own children, of course, with the battle that I'm going through with dilapidated knees, wrists, having my knees drained all the time, constant pain that are synonymous with having an autoimmune disease like this. It's obviously a constant worry that I hope that my children don't get it, but that's why we're really trying with our foundation to bring awareness that kids do get it, and that these kids are really fighting, and this is a lifelong disease for them. This isn't something that's just going to end. So we're really determined to get the word out, and we're happy that because of some of the things that I'm able to do in my condition, climbing Everest and climbing mountains, we're hopeful to bring attention to this disease that's really needed.
Well, it's certainly a shocker to me to read in the literature on your foundation that a child as young as 1 year old could be suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. They call it JRA, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Right. I understand, what is the actual medical definition of rheumatoid arthritis?
The actual definition is it's an autoimmune disease that attacks your joints, your cartilage, and your body essentially is turning against itself. So the joints are being destroyed, and unfortunately, in children, it can move into their organs, into their kidneys, into their lungs, into their eyes. A lot of them go blind from it. So it is a very debilitating and horrible lifelong disease for these kids. And the big problem is there's a big problem with diagnosing it. It's not something you can just go in and 1 hour later you take a blood test and you have the answer, if you will. When I actually came down with it 10 years ago, it took about 9 months to be diagnosed, but I didn't need to go to the doctor to be diagnosed. I knew there was something wrong. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't bend over. I knew there was something fundamentally wrong with my body and what I was going through. So a lot of those parents deal with long struggles of seeing their little kids crying, and it's a big battle.
No, I know, and you still are into mountain climbing.
Yes, sir.
Before you found out that you had RA.
Yes.
the idea of a disease like this affecting you in terms of your ability to continue in that, what did you think about that?
Well, when I actually got diagnosed, I went into a shell. And the reason being was I was always active and athletic, always surfing, always running, always out playing football, basketball, all of these things. And when I got diagnosed, when I came down with it, literally I was bedridden. And I was embarrassed to come out and tell people, I was 27, 28 years old, and say, hey, I can't move anymore. And all of my dreams, I was kind of dying as a person, if you will, because being so athletic, I really believed in human excellency. And I really had to learn how to adapt. And when I finally was able to kind of feel good again, it really was a good thing to get back into mountaineering and to climbing, because it really allowed me to kind of show the disease that, hey, you might have control of my body, but
you could still practice this.
I still have a will that's constant, and I'm not going to give up, and I'm born with a purpose.
Well, anyway, climbing Mount Everest demonstrates the will, and you did it.
Absolutely.
How many, I understand in reading your literature, there's about 300,000 children currently with RA in the United States, and how come we don't hear more about this? It seems like it's hidden behind the screen someplace.
You are absolutely correct. 99% of the people who I talk to about RA, number one, do not know that young kids can get it, nor do they know that people middle-aged can get it. It's obviously associated with people, 60, 70, or 80. And it really is a public awareness education thing. It's just that we have not been educated enough about the disease. I didn't even know when I was diagnosed. When they told me you have rheumatoid arthritis, I thought, what is this? This is something my grandmother has, or I didn't know about it. And because of that lack of education, we really saw that there was an area for us where we could help with that. We really thought our dreams today could become tomorrow's realities by really trying to bring awareness to what we were doing at the foundation and to the disease and to what I was doing specifically by climbing mountains with the disease. That
makes perfect sense. The problem, I guess, and I understand that you use a product, over-the-counter product called Nyloxin, which is derived from cobra venom.
That's
how is it applied? Is it
actually, I do use a product, and it is cobra venom, and it's kind of like I rub it on my knees, on my hips, on my shoulders. And fortunately for me, with these diseases, you have to take a tremendous amount of drugs. And for me, with the mountain climbing, I was always concerned with taking so much ibuprofen or COX-2 inhibitors, all these pills and
painkillers.
All these painkillers, and I didn't know what a lot of those were going to do to me climbing up in the death zone. So for me specifically to find something that I was able to, which was kind of a weird sort of a drug, because when I tell you I use cobra venom, people they take a step back, but it really was a wonderful blessing for me, and it allowed me not to have to worry about ingesting tons and tons of drugs. Now that could change. Right now I'm okay. I'm sort of in a sedate state with my RA, but with RA, you never know what's going to happen. So 10 minutes after this interview, I could be in a wheelchair I could have an absolute flare-up, and that's kind of why we're so determined to do our climbing now and to make our dreams come true with the foundation.
And then by publicizing the fact that there is this painkiller essentially for parents with young children specifically who have been diagnosed with RA, rheumatoid arthritis, they know what to do to help.
Yeah, there's just so many drugs out there, and I think for me specifically, I think it was good. Not all drugs work for all people and so forth. And for me specifically, the thing that was key with Nyloxin specifically was they believed in what I was doing. They took a chance on a fellow who had rheumatoid arthritis who said, hey, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest. And they believed in me, and I really do believe all it takes is one person to believe in you for you to make a change.
That's very true. Let's suppose a young couple have a child.
Sure.
and they notice something unusual happening one way or the teacher at school reports to them, pay attention to this. How will the parent know if their child is developing? It hasn't got it yet, but it's beginning to see the first stages of rheumatoid arthritis.
It's hard. It's hard to decipher the symptoms. And you touch upon something that's a problem that happens with hundreds of parents around the country, is that at school, because there's so little known about the disease, teachers sometimes even have a hard time believing the child has the disease. So for instance, we'll have communications with parents where a PE teacher will still make the child run because the teacher says, this child doesn't have arthritis. That's not even possible. Yeah. So for parents, it is a long struggle. One, to figure out what the child has, but two, on an emotional level, they're dealing with a child who's crying all the time, who's in pain, and as you know, there is nothing more painful than seeing your child in pain and
can't do anything.
Helplessness. And we've tried to bring inspiration to them to say, hey, there is something. We're going to try to bring awareness to what's going on and to try to make things better the best that we can do.
Let me ask a question about the effect. For example, autism. We know there's about 130,000 kids. They're all boys. Doesn't seem to affect girls. For juvenile RA, is it specific to one sex or both?
It's not specific to one sex, but girls do have it a little more than boys. I don't have the exact number, but they do come down with a little more. And even in adults, even when the people I'm around, there's not as many men who have it as women. And as I said, there's no genetic reason for that. There's no cure. There's no cause. So, I mean, a lot of it is still enigmatic, if you will. And we're hoping that changes.
Yeah, so the disease just tells the autoimmune system to attack the body.
Absolutely.
As if it were attacking a virus or bacteria.
Absolutely. And with it, it literally is like the light is turned on. As with me, when I came down with it, my wife Emily and I, we were on a trip in Hawaii. And one day we woke up and the light was on, my knees were swollen, everything hurt, and it was just like that. It was on. And you can imagine from that took a long time to get diagnosed, because first it was at the doctor's, maybe you got stung by something in the water, maybe you hit all these.
Sure, they try everything.
Yeah, they try everything.
Right.
And meantime, I couldn't move. So there was something seriously wrong, and it hurt me, emotionally and physically.
Since there is no cure, currently, is there any kind of research being done?
Absolutely. There is great research. A lot of the big pharma companies are doing wonderful research and finding some drugs that actually slow the progression of the disease and are hopefully going to find a cure. And I hope in my lifetime that it does happen. They are really trying to do it, because there's a mass population that needs it. We really do need the help, and I'm hopeful that obviously with what we can do to help bring attention to it, and with the drug companies, that something will happen soon.
The big concern is that a lot of the companies are cutting back, and that's unfortunate. So more of the reason why this particular disease should be promoted, so the public is aware of it and will support the research and support organizations like your foundation.
Absolutely. I would say that you had a group of kids who didn't have a voice. And we're proud to be the fact that we've been able to do something that has allowed us to bring attention to them, because there's a lot of families out there who are hurting, who are in pain, who need the drugs, who need help. And it's an absolute privilege for me to sit up here and say to you that I have rheumatoid arthritis now. I'm very proud of it and what we've accomplished.
The foundation literature that I went to on your website essentially said that there are very few pediatric rheumatoid arthritis specialists in the country. Well, what will be the effects now? Let's say the child is diagnosed by a pediatric rheumatoid arthritis specialist in California, and he advises the parents, and the kids are put on a regime of some kind of drug, and to manage the pain. What can the parents be told about the expectation for that child's life?
it's going to be a battle. I mean,
for the rest of
the rest of their life, there is no cure. So while drugs right now can slow the progression, there's also always going to be the possibility of having hips and knees replaced, wrists replaced, and that's just what the disease does. It just causes that destruction. And unfortunately, what we wanted to show through our foundation, what I was doing, that regardless of having that sort of prognosis, you could still make your dream come true. You could still get up the sofa and go for things. Because there's so many people in the world who never do anything. We wanted to inspire these kids who were told that they wouldn't be able to do things because of their disease to get up and do something.
Sure. Now there are pain management, of course, probably the first priority, or special exercises.
Sure.
The thing that I find very depressing for a young child is that once it attacks a joint, it's destroyed and that's it. And if it's attacking an internal organ, and particularly the eyes, let's say, that's even almost a monstrous kind of thing to have happen to a 3 or 4-year-old.
I think you said the right word, monstrous. We've had kids who have had hip replacements, knee replacements, who have had strokes because it's moved into the vascular system. So, I mean, it is a tremendous problem with the kids, and it's not a pretty picture. I mean, it is not. But you know what's amazing? These kids, most of them, they're all fighters. You know, they don't see it as an obstacle that's a stumbling block. They see it as an obstacle that's a stepping stone to what they want to do, and we're proud to have been able to do that as well. To actually, with me climbing Mount Everest, to show that here's a major obstacle that I have. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I was able to climb Mount Everest. And
well, now tell me more about your foundation, particularly about your dream team. Can you describe that?
Well, we make dreams and wishes come true for kids with juvenile arthritis, and kids who have the disease are able to apply to our foundation, and we're able to make their dreams come true. And we've done dreams like arranging a child to spend the day with Miley Cyrus. We've sent kids to Disney World. We've taken kids on shopping sprees, bought them computers, musical instruments, birthday parties. We're helping pay for a young lady to go to college. So we are very happy with what we've done, because we believe that these kids deserve something that gives them hope, that lets them know not only are they getting a gift, which is great, and sending someone to college is great, but we want them to see me as well and say, hey, look, this guy has what I have, and he's doing this.
Yes.
Life's not over. There are no borders. There are no limits. They can absolutely go for it, and we believe in that.
I think fulfilling wishes of children with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis is great, because it gives them something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
And then after that's accomplished, something to think about, memories, good memories.
Absolutely.
Motivator.
Absolutely.
Well, when and why did you conceive the idea of climbing Mount Everest?
I actually, when I was a young man, I saw a picture of Mount Everest above a friend of mine. He had a poster above his bed. And I saw this big, black, massive granite, snow-filled rock that looked just ominous. And I was hooked by it, and I continued to read books about it, about all the early explorers climbing mountains throughout the world. And I was moved, and it really took to me as a person, because I saw these early mountaineers as people who were originators and not imitators. They went out and did what they wanted to do to go out and conquer, and I fell in love with that. And in my early teens, I was climbing and hiking and so forth, and when I really came down with RA, it really was the catalyst that said to me, I have to now go for this. My wife and I, Emily, when we went on our first date, we went and saw the movie, the book you're talking about, Into Thin Air.
Into Thin Air.
Yeah, we went and saw it. That was our first date.
Yes.
14 years ago, and I looked at her and I said, I'm going to climb that one day.
And what did Emily say?
Yeah, she walked away. She shook her head.
But you did it. I understand you have done it twice. Well, the first time you got up so far, but then you said, wait, I better not. And you come back, and then this year you did it.
Absolutely. The first time I went, I did not make it. And I will tell you, it was one of the most wonderful learning lessons that I could have ever had, because in life, even though I have RA, it's a metaphor for getting up after you've been knocked down, because I got kicked in the face by Everest the first time, absolutely beat up by Everest. And I came home, and I said, I'm going back. And I put my chin out there, and I think it's a metaphor for everybody that if you get kicked down, guess what? Get back up. You can get kicked down 9 times, but get up 10 times.
And when you fall off a horse, get back on the horse.
Absolutely.
Well, what is involved both in planning for and making the actual climb?
Lots of training beforehand, obviously, to get in the best physical shape that you can. And for me, I had to get in even beyond the best physical shape because I have the limitations of rheumatoid arthritis. And climbing the mountain, we have to do numerous rotations up through avalanche-prone areas, whiteouts, winds, lack of oxygen.
Say lack of oxygen. I know that you brought in. Can you show us your oxygen mask?
Yeah, that's what we wear after we leave Camp 4 at 26,000 feet, going to the summit to 29,000 feet. That area is termed the death zone because there's so little oxygen. We are dying on the cellular level. We cannot live there. Any prolonged time in there, if it's 72 hours, you're going to die. You're absolutely going to die. That area is littered with over 200 bodies, that 26 to 29,000 feet, that are right there. That those men and women are doing exactly what we were doing. And this is an oxygen, like you said, and it is attached. There would be a bottle, and you'd be carrying it.
So you've got these very large boots. I remember before the taping began, I picked one up and just walking around with one of these was quite a chore. Yeah,
these are huge boots for and very warm. They have Kevlar in them and so forth to keep you warm up in that death zone. Because, for instance, when we summited, it was about 70-mile-per-hour winds and about 40 degrees below.
Now, you were in a party of people.
We were in a party of people.
And you have a Sherpa with you.
I had a wonderful Sherpa, a gentleman named Donru. Sherpas are the indigenous people to that region of Nepal. And I would only say this, that he was one of the greatest climbing partners that I could have had. And together we climbed and we summited on May 14th, 2011 at 6:10 a.m. And it was a wonderful experience. And
so you arrived at the top at 6:10 a.m. What did you start?
Well, actually,
Camp 4 to get?
We left at 8:30 in the evening.
8:30 in the evening.
And it took us about 10 hours to get to the top. And when I got to the top, because it was we were climbing in such a windstorm, I had lost the sight in my left eye. So on top,
that's pretty rough.
Was pretty rough and a little bit scary for a little while, but. With mountain climbing, there's a difference between panicking and choking. We weren't going to choke up there. That we had a little panic, and I just looked at him and said, "Hey, I can't see. We're at 29,000. Let's just touch the top and let's just begin the descent down." It took us 15 hours to get down, so it was a 25-hour climb.
So from 6:15 in the morning, 15 hours back to Camp 4.
Yeah. So we left at 8:30 on the 13th. We got back at camp 9:30 at night on the 14th. 25 hours later.
Wow.
And I felt strong, and I felt like everything I had wanted to do was...
You achieved it.
I achieved it, and all the people who I was carrying on my back, and we wanted to make it worth it and show people again, you can do it.
And not to bring up a morbid subject, but you said that one of the men on the climb died.
Yeah, we had one gentleman on our team who did pass away.
Heart attack, probably.
He had a heart attack, and
due to the death zone condition.
Yeah, I think it was altitude plus. When you're climbing at these high altitudes,
strain.
You don't know what's going to happen. Your body you don't know how your body is going to adjust. And we had a member who passed, and there were other members who, when you're climbing, who you see that are just, who died the day before and were just wrapped up in a sleeping bag.
So you were taking a very big risk. Not only because you have rheumatoid arthritis, but going up to the top of Mount Everest is not a walk-up.
Absolutely. But I can only tell you this. The risk was worth the reward, because what we did in doing it and what I did in doing it, there's no greater lessons that we're able to tell people, to show people. And we really believe, everyone does have a Mount Everest. Mine actually was a literal one. I wanted to climb Mount Everest. But we all have it. Kids have it if they... have the disease and they're trying to just learn how to walk, or so we really think it
keep up with their peers.
We really think it translates to a lot of.
Well, obviously, when you climbed it, you did get the publicity.
Oh, we've gotten lots. We got great publicity. ABC, we've been in newspapers, magazines. So we've done some great things that we're very, very proud of, and we're glad we've been able to bring awareness to what we're doing.
Well, I know by going to your website, our viewers can learn a lot about your foundation.
Yeah.
I understand your website is www.jgcaf.org.
That's right, and we make dreams and wishes come true for kids with arthritis. And we want to hear from people. We want to hear people's stories, adults and children who have the disease, because we want to know more, we want to help more, and we want to create more people to be part of our RA Army, if you will.
RA Army.
Sure.
Like it.
Yeah.
Well, before we sign off, are there any thoughts that you'd like to leave with our viewers?
Someone said to me a couple months ago, so now that you've climbed Mount Everest, are you done? And the answer is absolutely not.
What's your next challenge?
Our next challenge, we're going to be climbing Aconcagua. It's the highest mountain in South America. It's in Argentina. We'll be climbing in January.
This January
29th, 2012 we leave. And we're going to keep climbing until there's a cure. That is exactly until we do not receive any more applications for kids wanting to have dreams because they're cured. That's when we're going to stop climbing.
Well, you've got a lifetime of climbing ahead of you.
Either a lifetime of climbing, or we're going to have a cure and I can stop climbing. But that's what we're going to do, and we're determined to keep on going.
Well, that's wonderful. Jeff, I want to thank you for being our guest today and for the time and effort you've invested in your foundation to help children suffering from this terrible disease called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. I hope you found this program very interesting and informative, learning about juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, about meeting Jeff Gottfurcht, who's done so much for these children, and about his foundation. And I would like you please to go to his website, www.jgcaf.org, and learn even more. That's www.jgcaf.org. Thank you for watching. See you this time next week. Goodbye for now.